Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you all can hear. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the indication. That's good. And I hope you all are surviving well. This is the final week of the semester. Uh, okay. Sorry, I have too many things open on my screen. Um, yeah. Okay. First off, apologize because I added this session in. I thought it would be good to have this session to do a bit of revision. So we are left with this week. Okay, so tutorial will still continue for this week. And then the 2 lecture slots that we have today and Thursday. I'll use today for revision, and then I'll use Thursday for revision as well. So revision is divided into half today and another half, or rather today on the first 3 topics, which is around transport planning, that topic. Okay, and then Thursday I'll move into intersection analysis, intersection performance, as well as pedestrian transport. All right, so these 2 revision sessions hopefully will help you to gear towards the final assessment, which is an online test. Okay. Now, don't ask me this afternoon what is expected of you for final assessment at this point. I will dwell on that all together on Thursday. So you may ask me on Thursday if you are still not clear. All right. But I will not speak on that today. Yeah, so today I'll just mainly focus on the revision, and then Thursday we'll do the remaining revision, and I'll explain a little bit on the online assessment, the final assessment, and also I'll deploy a project of mine. I'll speak on the project of mine on Thursday as well. Okay, so that may need a bit of help from you. But anyway, I'll leave that to Thursday, which is just 2 days away. All right, but one good news is, if you would like to know in advance, one good news is that for your final assessment, the topics will only cover up until pedestrian transport. So which means your rail transport will not be included. The rail engineering will not be included. Okay, so if you look at the weightage, your assessment for rail system is actually made up of assignment 3 and assignment 4, which in total contributes to 25% of the unit. Yeah, so we spend about 3 weeks, that's about 25% of the unit. So I think it's fully justified over there in terms of the weightage and in proportion to the weeks that we spent on those topics. All right, so it will not be included in the assessment, in the final assessment. Yep. Okay, so let's get going. Okay, so in the first 3 weeks, in the first 3 weeks of the semester, we looked into transport system planning. And then we looked at how we collected the data, how we presented the data so that this can support transport planning. Okay, and eventually we look into part of transport planning is actually to be able to predict the future traffic, which comes under transport modeling, and how we manage the traffic. How we manage the traffic, how we change the behavior of your transport users, which then comes under traffic engineering and management. And we also talk about intelligent transport system and its role in improving the transport system. Okay, so this was our concentration during the first 3 weeks of the semester. All right, so I'll just go into this a little bit. Now, what I'll do is just to touch base a little bit and help us to recall back what we have already gone through in the past. Okay, I think that is week 1. That was 11-12 weeks ago. So some of us may have forgotten what we have studied in those weeks. Yeah. All right, so transport system, if we look at this as a whole, we have to look at it when we talk about transport system, we have to look at it as a whole. Okay, we cannot just see parts of it. All right. So in this lesson, we look at the different parts and different elements of transport system, and how do we assess the performance of your road system. Okay, so two things that we look at in the first week of the semester, right? So yeah, we went through this, what was congestion, how it came about, and what are some of the good things that other people have done, some of the examples. So we look into that, okay? So then in week 1, we look at the different modes of transportation. And in our case, for this unit, we are just concentrated on land transportation, okay? And in particular, roads, for roads. And towards the end, we look at rail system. Okay, so went through this. Yeah, so what is transport planning, or rather what was the concentration on for transport planning, is that we want to move people, we want to move goods. Okay? Two things: we want to move people, we want to move goods within, so that we create a livable and sustainable communities. Right, so that's the goal of doing transport planning. We want to move people, and we want to move goods around. Okay? Or enable people to move around, enable the goods to be delivered. All right, and the bottom line is that so that it fulfills the social, environmental, and economic outcomes. Okay, so to move people and good, so that social, environmental, and economic needs are taken care of. Yeah. All right, then we discuss on performance indicators. So then if you look at performance indicators, the objective always is safer transport system. We want it to be sustainable. We want it in terms of the social objective, and then we have the economic objective. Yep. So the triple bottom line, the environmental, social, and economic objectives. All right. Above all, this safety would be an issue. All right. So how do we use this uh, objective? How do we apply these objectives into our projects, into our into the or what do I put it? Into all the different aspects, or into all the different problems that we have, transport problems that we have for each cities, or for each environment that we have. Yeah? For example, you have um, in your assignment, okay, I just start off with your assignment. In your assignment, you have new development. So new development, possibility, there is a possibility of generating more traffic. So that is the issue. Yeah. So that issue will then, if we put up any measures, yeah, if we put up any measures to solve that issue after doing all the analysis, it is always to address any of these objectives. Okay, safety, environmental, social, and economic objective. All right, so it's always to address that. And if you look at your own assignment, assignment one, as well as a little bit of assignment 2, safety is definitely one of the things that you have to think about. But apart from that, if you look at the wider picture, not just solving the traffic congestion, whether the intersection are congested or not, yes, but that actually leads to a bigger picture, which is environmental, social, and economic. Yeah, so if you have traffic congestion, it may lead to environmental pollution, and socially, you couldn't get to destinations that you want. So that will be social. And in terms of economic, wasting your time stuck in a traffic congestion is just a pure waste of time and resources. All right, so it's always tied back to this tree. Okay, and then we learn how to set performance indicators. And so these are also all the different performance indicators that we use to measure how good or how bad your road system is. Okay, so in your case, in assignment 1, what were the measures that we use? Maybe you can tell me a little bit. You've gone through your assignment 1. So in your assignment 1, you did what's that? You did the traffic count. You did the analysis of the existing condition. You did the analysis of future condition after you've predicted. So what is the performance indicators if you're looking at your assignment 1? Safety, yes, safety. Yep, we were looking into the safety, in particular when you were doing your design of your intersection. I think some of the groups I commented your left turn towards your U-turn, you're crossing few different lanes, so that is safety. Yeah? So you want to prevent accidents, you want to prevent injuries, fatalities. Okay, so yeah, any one of it. Mobility. Yes, then you analyze, what did you analyze? Your roundabouts, your intersections, both the current Stutong roundabout as well as your what's that? Proposed proposed intersection to the access road. Yeah. So if you analyze, I think you get what's that? The level of service very terrible. Yeah. So that is translated into travel time will be very long. Traffic flow very congested. All right. So these are in terms of mobility. Okay. Any other than that? So mainly what's that? Mainly we address these few issues that you have. Sustainability. Yep. Yes. I'm not so sure if your group or other groups specifically address that issue for sustainability. The congestion level at this point for the existing what's that intersection eventually would then lead into if you have a lot of if very high level of congestion, then we would have that will lead to environmental issues, noise exposure, and so on. All right. So yeah, sustainability is also one performance indicator. I'm not so sure. I haven't really looked into your what's that assignment 1. It may not really address sustainability directly, as in we did not measure what's the environmental pollution, for example, or noise level. So we did not really measure that indicator. Yeah, but it is linked to, say, travel time, delay. We know that higher delay, you generate more pollution from the what's that? From the vehicle exhaust. So it is indirectly linked. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So then, yeah, the idea is that um, in every project, there are definitely indicators that we will measure. And these are to help us to understand the situation or to assess the condition at that point, okay, whether it is good, and then to help us to predict what is coming in the future, whether your proposed intersection, your proposed road, your proposed facility will be able to cater up to par or not, surrounding these indicators. Okay, so although we did not really address all of this in assignment 1, it's somewhat interrelated. We definitely did some of it. Say, for example, delay. We definitely calculated that in your assignment. All right, so you actually did some of this. Okay, so I hope that helps to put into perspective these indicators and also how it plays its role in projects. Okay, so one of it is your assignment. That is one project. So how these indicators are positioned in your assignment 1. All right. Any question up to this point? Okay, I don't see any question. Now, if you do have question, just type in. I'll attend to it later. Okay, then from there we move into Unit 2, which is on traffic data collection and how we present the results. Okay, so in in week 1, we have all these performance indicators, and when we say indicator, it usually means a number. It usually means a number. So travel time, how many minutes, number. You can measure it, okay? It's numerical. You can measure it, all right? So that is why this is then linked to traffic data collection. We want to get numbers in, we want to get data, hard facts in before we can make any decision, before we can make any proposal, all right? So then traffic data collection and how we present it, how we present all the data that we have collected into meaningful results. And you have also went through that process. Okay, so yeah, traffic data collection. I mentioned we cannot plan without solid data and information. All right, so this topic that we discussed was on data collection and presentation of results. All right, so if you look at the information that are commonly required given here, listed here, I will not go through it again, but what I want you to see is that this is actually linked to the performance indicators. Flows, travel time, traffic flow. And then we have, let's say, number of waiting vehicles. This again is translated into travel time under mobility. Yep. Then we have parking, supply, demand, or speed. So you see, all these are actually linked back to performance indicators. Okay, then we had discussed on the purpose of traffic studies, and we have also used that in your own assignment as well. How we estimate the future condition, how we make use of the data to estimate future condition, to do a bit of planning, to assess the Stone roundabout. You did that, okay? Right, so I'll not go through a lot of this. Yeah, and in your assessment as well, you also did traffic survey planning or traffic studies planning. And this is very specific to the problem at hand. Okay, so it's not, let me just go, where is that? I think behind. Just a second. Yeah, so if we look at this list of traffic survey that we have, and this is not exhaustive, the point is that the type of survey that you do, the data that you want to collect would depend on the data that you want to collect. Okay, so the type of traffic studies that you do would then depend on what type of data that you need. And that is tied back to the objective of your project or the problem of the project. What is the issue? Okay. And in your in your assignment 1, I made reference a lot to assignment 1 because you have already experienced it. So I think it is easier and to get a better idea or to link all that together. Okay. Now, in your assignment 1, the issue was that you have new development. So with that comes expected to have more traffic on the road, and that will mean traffic volume. All right. So the data that you need is actually traffic volume. But apart from traffic volume, okay, or rather, the data that you need is traffic volume, and hence, I think many groups, I glanced through some of the reports actually. I saw many groups actually put traffic volume survey. Yeah? So that's how you derive what type of survey that is needed for the project. Okay, so it is very specific to the project that you have, to the problem of the project that you have at hand, right? So if let's say the concern is then the concern after you have this, you have described the problem. So the concern is that speed will be, let's say speed is very high, and the concern eventually will be accident, a lot of accident happening. Then we may want to do a speed survey. Okay, so again, like I said, this is very specific to the problem you have. Okay, so whether, so then if you ask me what kind of survey should I propose, then my answer is it depends on what issue you have at hand. All right, so I hope that is clear to you. Now, we may propose what's that, traffic surveys that are not just one type of traffic surveys for the same issue. We may have several surveys, and these surveys may complement each other. Okay, for example, let's say in assignment 1 again, just now I mentioned volume is of a concern. Okay, so that will eventually build up to traffic congestion, and you would want to know where the volumes are going to. So then you can complement your traffic volume survey with perhaps an origin destination survey. All right. Or in another example, let's say you have speed issue, and the concern here, of course, is speed, like I said earlier, but that area may have had an accident history. So you might want to complement that with an accident study. Okay, so you could have more than one traffic surveys that complement each other's information. Yeah, so that helps us as a traffic engineer, transport planner, to get a better idea, as well as to how do I put it? As well as to make a better decision based on data that is laid in front of you. Okay. So then the details of the traffic volumes, the details of the traffic surveys are all given here, starting off with traffic volume. All right, so you have different types of traffic volume and its usage. Okay, I don't want to go through in detail today. I think you can read that on your own. Today is more of to look at it overview. Okay. All right, so after you've collected the survey, regardless of which type of survey, then the data will be presented in a very meaningful way. And that presentation would depend on what is the need, what do you want to show? Okay, and in your case for assignment 1, you made use of the data and turn that into a traffic turning movement count figure. Yeah, you turn it into a traffic turning movement count figure so that we can read easily where the vehicles are going to. Okay, so that is something useful. All right, so for each survey, all the data that you have to sift it, reduce it, and get it out into a meaningful representation of the data. All right. Yeah. Okay, origin destination survey. Yep, so these are all the different surveys that we have. Yep, we discussed. Okay. So I hope this gives you an idea how we link back to what we discussed in week 1, which is the performance indicators. And eventually, of course, link to the third point. Okay, is that okay at the moment? Okay, I see thumbs up. All right, then okay, so moving on from week 1 to week 2, after we've collected the data, after we've presented the data in a useful way. So next, then we move into transport modeling to try and predict future traffic. Sorry, I keep on pressing this. Yeah, so we try to move into transport modeling to predict future traffic. Okay, so then transport modeling is that 4-step transport modeling. All right, so we'll look at that and the other topics. Okay, so overall, what we are trying to address as a transport system performance, overall what we are trying to address in all our projects is basically to identify the gaps and to solve this gap. Okay, to identify the gap in our transport system, and then to tackle and solve the gaps that we have in our transport system. Okay, so in our transport system, usually you have a desirable outcome and you have an actual outcome. All right, so in your assignment 1, ideally, if you have new development, it should not hamper on the existing transport system. So that is the desirable outcome. Okay, so what we want is really no changes to the current system, or even better, you can improve the current system. But what is the actual outcome? Left to be seen, of course. Once the construction has taken place, open up to traffic, that is left to be seen. But our role as transport planner or transport planner is to see if there is a potential gap there. Okay, a potential gap, and what are the challenges that it will bring. Okay, what are the challenges that it will bring? And from there, we try to identify and plan to address these challenges or the gaps. Okay, so then to identify and to plan for that, we will need various inputs from all the different stakeholders, be it from the government, be it from your road users, Okay, from the government, there are the policy making, what's that? Policy making as well as decision making, to your individual users. So you have to consider all this input from the stakeholders. Okay, so then we try to predict or what's that? To propose solutions to address the gaps that we have identified. All right. Okay, so then in our proposal, in the planning, in our proposal, as part of the solution, there are many options that we can do. Whether we change something or we don't change something. If we don't change something, we remain it as status quo, that is also an option. Okay, but if you want to do some changes by creating new system, modifying an existing system, or to put in some other alternatives. Yeah, those are all examples, or all those options. Okay, so the options could be at many different levels, and the planning, back to this, the gap and the planning could be at many different levels. Okay, it could be just a small, tiny, what's that problem right in front of your house. Maybe people are using your road, the road in front of your house as a shortcut. That could be a problem, you know. So you complain to the council would have to take action, and therefore they came up with some solution. All right, it could be a simple solution. Maybe just block it so that it's dead end and nobody can use it as a through road. All right, to a more complex and more challenging gap that would involve the entire city or the entire town. Yeah, so that would be a network level. Okay, so we see that, yeah, it could be at a very simple level, or it could be at a very high level. Okay, so all these would require planning, and the solutions, the options or the solution here could then be either infrastructure or non-infrastructure. Right, so this is then tied to some of the points at a later stage of this lecture, which is the behavior, or rather supply strategy or demand strategy. Okay, usually if it is infrastructure option, we are looking at a supply strategy. So you upgrade, you build, you enhance the existing road widening, you build maintenance, you build. So these are all, this infrastructure are tied to supply strategy. Okay, so you supply your users, you give them what they need, right? Other non-infrastructure option, these are what we call a softer option. We don't directly give to the passengers or to the users, yeah, but rather we would give something else, alternative. We put, say, housing together with other type of development, commercial, education, and so on. All right. So that is in terms of land use planning. So it's very soft approach. Okay. Or we educate our citizens to change their travel behavior. So that is another soft approach. All right. And we could use other measures like traffic operation measures, yeah, limited road access points, etc. Okay, so this again, soft approach. Right. Yep. Then, okay, then any of these approaches that we have, any of the options that we have, we can look into integrating the different modes of transport to to have a better transport system. So it's not always just one type of transport. Okay. So here they are here listed all the examples that you can find. All right, then from there, okay, so knowing that we have all these options and knowing that we have all the data that we have from the traffic surveys and all the performance indicators, what are we trying to measure? So then we look forward, we look into the future, we try to predict what is in the future, okay, the demand in the future. All right, so how do we predict? Is through a 4-step transport modeling. All right, so this 4-step transport modeling, you have trip generation, trip distribution, mode split, and trip assignment. Okay, so if we look at this, trip generation means how many trips are produced and how many trips are attracted to it. Okay, so from each location, this I and J are all the destinations or locations. There are trips going out and there are also trips going in. Okay, so you have trips produced, and you also have trips attracted to I. So same goes with J, another location. You also have trips produced and trips attracted to it. All right, so these trips may travel to each other or they may travel elsewhere. Okay, then we have trip distribution. Where would the trip ends? You know, where would the trip goes? I think quite a number of you struggle through this part in your assignment, particularly between trip distribution and trip assignment. Yeah. Trip distribution, the simple question is, where does it go? I just want to know the end destination. What happened in between, I don't care. Okay, so that is trip distribution. I just want to know where is the end destination. Where does the trip go? That's all. Okay, but in trip assignment, I know the end destination. I want to know what happened in between. All right, so the difference is that, okay, so trip assignment, I know the end destination. I know that is the end destination, but how do my users reach that end destination? That is for a transport modeler to predict. Okay, whether they use their own personal car or whether they use public transport, and if they use their own personal car, which route are they going to reach to that same destination? And if they use public transport system, which public transport system are they going to use? Whether are they going to use bus service or are they going to use train service, tram service? Yeah, so you have to predict which route will your users use to reach the same destination. Okay, so that's the difference, all right, between trip distribution, trip assignment. All right, so then why is this important? Aside from I know how many trips are going to be in the future. Why is it so important? Now, knowing how many trips in the future is already important in itself, because then you know how much extra volume would you have on the road. And if you look at these lines, I just zoom in a bit. Okay, if you look at all these lines, if let's say you take all these lines as a road, then you would have intersection here. You would have intersection here. You would have intersection here, here. You would have another intersection here and here. So if you can predict how many extra traffic volume would be on this route, then you can assess the performance of this intersection, the performance of this intersection, and so on and so forth. All right. So then that would then tie back again into your performance indicators, particularly travel time, traffic flow. So that's the cycle, okay? So in order for you to predict a good, to make a good prediction of which route that your users would go, then of course you need additional information, not just traffic volume, but also all the other information. Say, for example, if you know that they'll be going to, there are new developments upcoming surrounding this area, then you may want to consider that as well. Or if you know that there will be an upgrade of the road, then you may have to consider that as well. Okay, so these are external factors into the choice that would influence the choice of travel in the future of your road users. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, trip generation. I think this one we've went through. Okay. Any question up until trip gen? Sorry, trip transport modeling. I don't see any, so I'll just continue on. Okay, yep. Then traffic engineering. So once you have determined, once you have determined your trip assignment, you know where the traffic will be congested. Okay, I go back to that. Yeah, once you know where the trips are going to be and which intersection are likely to be congested, then you can have management of your traffic, or you do some traffic engineering works. Okay, so traffic engineering works would include intersection analysis, intersection improvement, or how we manage the traffic if you don't want to do a lot of major constructions. Okay. Yeah. So to manage our traffic, managing our traffic doesn't mean you always give them what they want. Usually, if you are a driver, you would want a better road, no congestion and things like that. So managing the traffic would mean you don't give in to this kind of demand, all right? But rather, we will try to influence their behavior through the use of traffic control devices. Okay. Yeah. So to control your behavior is also to maintain the resources that you have now. You don't keep on constructing, but what you have now, make use of that and try to maintain it or incorporate a little bit of technologies into it so that it also creates a sustainable transport system. All right, so if we look at the different sustainable transport strategies, here we see you have integration of your public transport system, okay, so that we have reliable connection, good interchange facilities and all that. Yeah. Sustainable transport strategy is basically to reduce the growth of vehicle use, to reduce the dependency on driving. What's that? Yeah, using high occupancy vehicle and so on. Now, I came across an interesting discussion this morning. They were saying that for rich, developed countries, public transport system is the way to go. But then in developing countries, we tend to see we tend to tie vehicle to a status as a status statement of a person. So then we tend to drive. So it's either way. Okay. So, but basically, sustainable transport strategies is to reduce the growth in vehicle use. All right. So how we do that is we use high occupancy vehicle. We use travel demand strategies. Okay. Another one is hybrid car. This is not so much to reduce the growth in vehicle use, but rather this is in terms of environmentally friendly technology. Okay. Integrating land use, we have spoken on that, and that is also a sustainable transport strategy. Okay. Yep. So then that is then tied to supply strategy, demand strategy. Okay. So supply, like I said just now, is to build more facilities. But demand, on the other hand, is to modify our travel habits so that we don't drive, but rather we switch to other alternatives. Okay. Part of all these strategies is also to incorporate technologies into it. So that's why in the last bit of the of week 3, we discussed on ITS, role of intelligent transport system, where we make use of technologies to help in improving our transport system. Okay, so so the various applications of ITS is broadly categorized into traffic management, traveler information, commercial vehicle operation, and then public transportation, as well as vehicle control system. All right. I think I will not go into the details of all this now. I don't think I have the time to go to do that even. Yeah, but basically all the idea of this part is that we want to make use of existing infrastructure that is already there, but we put in a bit of technologies into it so that it is a little bit smarter. Yeah? Instead of, let's say in this case, we used to have static signage, but nowadays we have dynamic signage. All right, so that you can change the message from time to time. Okay, so all these are examples of how we can make use to improve traffic strategies, to improve the traffic condition, to manage our traffic better. Okay, so yeah, this was what we went through. All right. Okay, so yeah, any question? I'm open for discussion. If you have any question. We have about 5 minutes left for our time. Okay, there's a question. You said that railway system will not be tested in the final test. Yes, railway will not be included. Yeah, I'll speak more on that, or rather, I'll speak more on the final assessment on Thursday. Okay, no question from Kevin. All right, so if no question, I hope that the session gave you a little bit of recap into what we have learned basically 3 weeks ago, or rather first 3 weeks. And I hope you see the connections between all the topics in the first 3 weeks. Okay, so if no further question, all good for now. I'll see you on Thursday. All right. And also during tutorial, the remaining tutorial. Take care and bye-bye now.
Hi, Dr. Elizabeth.
Yes.
I'm now in the tutorial room.